Welcome back to another live. I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to be very consistent this time around. So please do bear with me. This is something that I'm new to. I haven't really done, a back-to-back live. This is something that's all new to me. I'm learning as I'm doing this. Um, Please also do get in the comments if you have any questions for me, in terms of how to grow on LinkedIn. If you have any questions about your content, what it is that you're currently doing, if you're someone that's a life coach, a founder, and you really want to get clients with your content, please do get in the comments, ask me anything, and I'll give you my best practices, my best frameworks, and my best strategies, in order to do that. But in terms of today, I really want to talk about you don't have to be on LinkedIn 24/7, 7 days a week in order to really, sort of build a successful platform, build a successful personal brand, and even get clients if that's what you're looking for. The reason being is because a lot of people think volume fixes most of their growing problems. you know Please do forgive me. This is an early morning live, so my voice will cave in here and there. I woke up less than 2 hours ago, so please do forgive me on that one. But in terms of what I was saying, you don't really grow on LinkedIn just by putting in, X amount of hours into it. It doesn't really work like that. If you're someone that's, interested in getting clients on LinkedIn and you're sending out 200 connections a week, you don't need me to tell you that 200 connections isn't necessarily going to work if I can already tell you that, maybe 50 connections might work for you. Volume doesn't necessarily fix your problems if you don't know what the problem is and how to solve the problem. It's like, let me just give you a real life example. So for anyone who thinks to themselves, in order for me to make more money, I need to get a second job. That doesn't necessarily you don't need me to tell you that you don't necessarily need to get a second job to make more money. You just need to increase the value of what it is that you're doing, right? And I'm not here to judge anyone who has a second job or even a third job, but what I'm telling you, from a purely making money perspective, you don't have to get a second job in order to make more money. The same way goes for LinkedIn. You don't have to put in two times the amount of hours, in order to sort of get clients and, build your personal brand and really build a platform on LinkedIn that really works, in tandem with your business. So I really, so please, I've also got a few things that I've written down in terms of what I wanted to cover today. So if you have any questions, please do ask me in the comments, and yeah, I'll get back to you, as we're going through this. The reason being, when I say you don't have to be on LinkedIn 24/7, if you're someone that's, like I said, if you're sending 200 connections a week and you're looking to get clients, maybe 50 connections might really work for you, but really it's not even just about how many connections you're sending. It's about what you're doing with those connections. What are you doing to how is the quality of your lead process good enough, if I might say, right? If you're sending 200 connections a week and you're sending a generic template on, you're sending a generic template telling a prospect that, hey, I'm this, that, and the other, thanks for connecting, I help this, that, and the other, would you be interested in my services? If you're getting ignored and you're sending 200 connections and you're sending 20 messages a day, you don't need me to tell you that maybe just connect with 50 people, engage with their content, really take an interest in what they're doing, their aspirations, maybe come, rather just don't be as professional as, you might think to yourself you need to be. Just be calm, just be yourself whenever you're having conversations with these people, because they're also people. So maybe just engage with their content a bit more, take an interest into, what it is that they're doing, what are their aspirations, and if there is a demand for maybe what it is that you help them with, then maybe you can further the conversation along and start asking, direct questions about what it is that they're doing, where do they think they could improve, and, things of that nature. You don't have to 10x your output in order to 10x, your results. Sometimes you just need to fix the very little things in terms of quality and in terms of, your overall process. So you don't have to be on LinkedIn 24/7, in order to sort of build a platform that really works in your favor. And so one of the things that I would do is, if you're someone that's on LinkedIn and you're constantly being told you need to comment over 1,000 times a day, you need to comment on, these type of people's content, and you need to engage with big creators, and you need to put in the amount of hours that are somewhat unimaginable, I will tell you that if you really want to create a system that works for you, please write this down. So I've been writing content for the past 5 years now on LinkedIn, and I will tell you for a fact, LinkedIn isn't shadow banning you, nor is it putting you, in the back burner in terms of, engagement. Because I see a lot of people think to themselves, well, my posts aren't really getting any likes, they aren't really getting any comments. So maybe the problem is me, or maybe LinkedIn is shadow banning me because I put in a lot of effort into it. I will tell you for a fact that LinkedIn isn't shadow banning you. The reason maybe your content isn't doing well is because LinkedIn hasn't fully understood what it is that you're doing. So, for example, if I'm someone who's a content strategist and I'm connecting with a lot of life coaches, people, and sometimes maybe these life coaches aren't active on the platform, so they're not necessarily engaging with my content, nor are they receptive to my outreach. The problem really starts when I'm posting content, because that content will go out to them and they're not engaging. And LinkedIn is sort of taking it as maybe people don't like your content, but LinkedIn doesn't factor in the fact that you're connecting with your ideal client more so than your audience, because your audience can be made up of completely different people. And when I say your audience is made up of completely different people, when I say your audience isn't necessarily the person who enters your DMs and asks you, um, what are you doing, and can you help me with this problem, or can you help me solve this problem. Your audience isn't necessarily that person who just comes to your DMs and is interested in your services. Your audience is the person who likes your content, who engages with your content, but they're not your ideal client, if I might say. So your audience could be made up of people who are peers, people who probably went to the same university as you, who probably went to the same high school as you, people who, you know, grow an affinity to your content, but they're not really your ideal client. So let's say someone who's in real estate, but they know you personally, and you help founders with their content. So those are two different worlds. So really, it does not help you, you know, in that perspective. So really, if you're someone that's posting a lot of content and you really think to yourself, maybe LinkedIn is shadow banning me, I'm here to tell you that LinkedIn isn't shadow banning you. It's just taking the results of what you're doing and putting it out there. So if you're someone that's a content strategist, and you're connecting with a lot of life coaches, your content is gonna go to life coaches, and if they're inactive, then that's really gonna harm your reach. So really, just if you're someone that's connected with a lot of people who aren't engaging with your content, I would advise you to start, cleaning out your network, and start, you know, um, what's the word? Really just start, removing a lot of people who aren't engaging with your content, and, people who aren't receptive to your outreach. Start connecting with people who are. And the best way to find that out is by engaging with your content. Do they reply to to the comments that you're putting out? Um, and if the time comes, do they engage with your content? And if they're not, then maybe they're not your ideal client, nor are they someone who is worthy of having you as a connection, because you don't have a connection list of people who are inactive on the platform. So please do not put yourself in that position where you're connecting with a lot of people who aren't your ideal clients, or maybe they are your ideal client, but they're inactive, or they just don't engage with your content at all. Because then your content starts going out to them, they're not engaging. LinkedIn starts to think, okay, maybe your content isn't good, the quality isn't good, and and sometimes LinkedIn really does test your content. Sometimes you might see your content really take off on a certain day, and some days your content really, really, hits rock bottom, if I might say. So sometimes maybe you could post on a Monday and your content might get like 30 likes and 15 comments. And maybe the next day your content just gets what, 5 likes and what, 2 comments, and one of those comments happens to be yours. So really, LinkedIn is really just testing out what type of content your audience really likes and what type of audience is receptive to your content. So give LinkedIn what it looks for. So if you're someone that's posting a lot of content, do not post to people who are inactive. Rather clean out your network first, figure out and then start testing your content. Try different frameworks, see what works, add a bit of storytelling, because even if someone is not your ideal client or your ideal audience, anyone who is using LinkedIn is receptive to storytelling content. So with that being said, you know, if I'm sharing a story about, my life or maybe the lessons that I've learned and whatnot, people are receptive to that type of content. So do not look down on content that is, storytelling content. So I really hope that helps you in terms of the content that you're posting. So someone out there might be thinking to themselves, maybe I need to post 7 times a week. Maybe I need to engage maybe 2 hours a day instead of an hour a day. Maybe I need to send 40 connection messages, 40 connection messages a week, well, a day, if I might say. And you know, and you really think to yourself, maybe volume is going to fix my issue, when really you just need to fix maybe what's not working. Maybe it's the connections that, maybe it's the people that you're connected to that's really harming your reach. So get clear on your ideal clients. Who are they? What are they struggling with? And what are they searching for on LinkedIn right now? That's one of the best ways to figure out who is your ideal client. And you need to sort of break down the type of people that you connect with. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you're only connecting with your ideal client, because you're putting a lot of your eggs in one basket if you're doing that. Because if they're not active that much on LinkedIn, and your content goes out to them, it's gonna harm your reach. So connect with, maybe let's say you are a content strategist, which happens to be me. One of the things that you want to do is you want to connect with, maybe let's say you're sending 200 connections, okay, let's say 100 connections a week. So this example works a lot better. Let's say you're sending 100 connections a week. 20%, which is 20 people, could be ideal clients. 20%, well, 40% could be your audience, could be people who are made up of peers, people who are, content strategists as well, um, and maybe another 40% is made up of, maybe more ideal clients and maybe peers, people who share the same role as you. You don't want to just connect with, 100%, well, 100 life coaches or maybe people of your ideal client, because then you're just asking them to really support your content and also be receptive to your outreach, which is a huge risk that you're taking. So please do not put yourself in a position where you think to yourself, one of the best ways I can, well, I'm just gonna share from my perspective. That's one of the biggest mistakes that I made over a year ago. I was sending out 200 connections a week, and those 200 connections were, let's say, 150 of them were ideal clients. And I started to see my content, really declining in terms of engagement. And I thought to myself, what? Because I'm connecting with my ideal clients, when I didn't necessarily think to myself they could be inactive on the platform. Let's say the last time they were on LinkedIn was maybe a month ago. Some aren't even using LinkedIn anymore. And I'm also sending out messages to them and they're not responding, and sometimes they maybe might see my message but they don't respond back, which is a very frustrating thing. But I will tell you for a fact, you don't need to put in X amount of hours in order to get X amount of results. Maybe just fix the very little things that you're currently doing. So yeah, if you have any questions, please do leave them in the comments. I'm gonna be here for at least another 20 minutes if there's anyone who wants to ask me a question. But yeah, sorry about that. I've been speaking for quite a bit now that my mouth is starting to get dry. Also, if you're posting content, please do let me know in the comments. I'd love to share my posting frameworks with you, because I see a lot of people, they're posting content, but they're using ChatGPT to write their content, which is a big no-no. If I haven't shared this with you in my previous content, I will share it with you now. ChatGPT is a no-no for your content, because one of many things that I find repulsive is content that is written by AI. And the reason being is because even though your content might be free to consume, do not neglect the power of connecting with your ideal clients. And one of the best ways you can connect with your ideal clients is by posting valuable content, content that is written by you, content that is curated by you, not by ChatGPT, by you. And your content might be free, but do not neglect the power of connecting with your ideal client through your own content. So make sure you are not using ChatGPT to write your content. And also, do not post to go viral, post to rather become relevant. And that's the new LinkedIn policy, if I haven't covered it in my past video, whereby LinkedIn is now prioritizing relevancy over over relevancy over what? Virality, if I might say. Because now we're at a point in time where a lot of people are complaining about their LinkedIn reach, and they're complaining about LinkedIn as subduing the content. And I will tell you for a fact, if you're posting content on LinkedIn, do not find yourself in a position where you're posting content that is written by ChatGPT, and you're also not getting clients, and your content isn't getting the reach that it deserves. So do not put yourself in a position where you don't even have the basics going for you. And one of the basic things that you can have going for you is content that performs well. It's more difficult to get a client than it is to post valuable content. I will tell you that for a fact. So please do not put yourself in a position where your content isn't necessarily valuable, and it's not garnering the amount of views and engagement that it deserves. So please do not use ChatGPT to write your content. And if I haven't shared my LinkedIn content strategy, like I said, I post from Monday to Sunday. I don't post on Saturday. So on a Monday and a Tuesday, I post educational content, and Wednesday and Thursday I post promotional content. Friday I could share during the live, and on Sunday I share a simple storytelling post where I talk about my life, how I didn't go to university, how I also wanted to become a professional football player, and what at one point in my life, and but those things didn't materialize. So what have I learned from those mistakes, and what am I going to do about it? So really, well and truly, do not think to yourself, well, as much as this video was about you don't have to be on LinkedIn 24/7, this video was more so about how LinkedIn is testing your content each and every single time you're posting. So do not think to yourself, oh, LinkedIn is just shadow banning me. They're not interested in what I have to share. And many of these things that you might think to yourself, maybe my content isn't doing well, my content you could complain about a lot of things, but don't put yourself in a position where LinkedIn doesn't necessarily take your content seriously. So please do not share content where you're posting selfies with puppy ears and whatnot, and unnecessary filters, and you're trying to be different, and you're trying to rock the system. You can do that if you want to. Being controversial is one of the big things that LinkedIn really really likes, but it shouldn't be a part of your content strategy to the point that you're posting each and every single day something that's controversial, because then you're just going against the outlier, which is, and I'm not necessarily saying don't be an outlier, but LinkedIn isn't your platform. It doesn't belong to you. You're just someone in a list of a billion people who use LinkedIn. And LinkedIn isn't just going to take you seriously over another 1,000 people who are doing exactly what LinkedIn wants. So do not put yourself in a position where you think to yourself, let me just be the outlier in my content. Let me just post things that are just controversial, and things of that nature. So one of the things that I will advise you to do is, if you're posting content, please don't post less than 3 times a week, because you do need LinkedIn to sort of get an idea of what type of content it is that you're posting. And your time zone is also important. I talked about time zone in my last live. Um, if you're someone that's in sorry, if you're someone that's in South Africa and you're posting content to people in America, you don't want to be posting at 8 a.m. South African Standard Time, because that's 2 a.m. in America. Your ideal client is not on LinkedIn at 2 a.m. in the morning. I'm sorry, that's just not, that they're not on LinkedIn. They're not on LinkedIn at that time of the day they're asleep. So you need to curate a time zone that works for you and works for them. So maybe later on in the evening, maybe 6 p.m. Their time could be a lot better than maybe 2 a.m. in the morning. I don't know the conversion of maybe late in the evening, but really don't put yourself in that position, in order to, if you really want to, really want to improve your reach on LinkedIn, your time zone is just as important as what you're posting. So your time zone matters. How many times you're posting also matters. I would advise you to post at least 4 or 5 times a week, if I might say. That really works for me. I post 5 times a week, sometimes maybe six. It just depends on how much content I want to share and really just what I'm doing at that current time. So if I'm working on an offer, I might post 6 times a week because I need to also promote the offer in my content. If I'm not necessarily promoting anything, I'm just selling my service, my normal content writing service. Um, I will tell you that I just post maybe 5 times a week, maybe even 4 times a week. So really, don't do that to yourself. Just posting 3 times a week, because you're not giving LinkedIn enough and analytical data in order to figure out who your ideal client is, when are they online, what are they looking for, and is your content relevant to them. Those are the most important things I will tell you to do if you're someone that's posting content on LinkedIn. Also, you need to be engaging with a lot of people. Well, I wouldn't say a lot of people, but you need to be engaging on LinkedIn. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people post content on LinkedIn and just call it a day. That is a big no-no as well, because if you're posting content and you're not engaging with people 15 minutes before and after you post, then you're not warming up your ideal clients and your audience to, look out for your content. A lot of people really look down on this thing. It's really, really powerful to do this, because I'm someone who does this. Obviously, I don't have the time each and every single day because I've been posting for 5 years. I used to do it a lot earlier on. Now I just know that maybe just posting 15 minutes before, well, rather commenting 15 minutes before, is probably fine for me, because my content will do its work on its own during the day. So for someone who's new like you, and you probably have less than 1,000 followers, less than 500 connections, you're gonna have to do the hard yards before you can start working. So 10 to 15 minutes of real engagement is really what's gonna help you in terms of, getting your content going, in terms of, reaching, a wider audience. Because sometimes you can post your content and your content can sort of find itself in a position where, the first 15 minutes, maybe 3 or 4 comments come in, maybe 1 or 2 comments come in, um well, what, 4 or 5 likes on a post and 2 comments or so, and maybe you also engaging at that time, you're also engaging with other people, and then more people start finding your content, and then your content starts to pick up the pace. It gets slower a bit and then picks up the pace later on in the day. So really do not underestimate the power of engaging before and after you post. And yeah, if you have any questions, please do ask me. And yeah, in terms of, setting a weekly routine in terms of how you want to grow on LinkedIn, I would advise you to don't necessarily send 1,000 connection requests and send 100 messages a week. In terms of, if you want to get clients, what I would advise you to do is, well, let's just talk lead generation for a second. So if you're someone that's posting, maybe 5 to 6 times a week, and you also have a specific time zone that you're posting at, I would advise you to sort of, if you're someone that's interested in getting clients, what I would advise you to do is send 100 connection requests a week. Don't send more than 100. You don't need to send more in order to figure out what's not working and what's supposed to be working. So just send 100 connection requests. Make sure that, these people are active. Check their profile. Have they posted any content in the last week or so? Have they engaged with anyone? You can also check their comments, and things of that nature, because you don't want to be connecting with someone who is not active. Also, like I said, you want to split up how you connect with people. So 40% could be your ideal client. So 40 connections is your ideal client, 20% is peers or whatever it may be. And another 40% could be people in your role. So if you're someone that's a content strategist, you also want to be connecting with people who are excuse me, people who are also content writers, people who are also, ghost writers, people of a similar nature to what you do. So that's very, very important. And then once you've done that, you want to engage with their content. You want to engage and start building you want to build a level of familiarity. You want people seeing your content. You also want people seeing your comments before you start reaching out to them. Because if you're just going to cold pitch them, they don't know you, they haven't seen your content, it's most likely they're going to ignore you and they're not going to get back to you. So make sure that you're engaging with the content. Don't engage with more than 3 posts a day, because then they can just tell you're just trying to, you know, bombard them with, love bomb them, if I might say. And you obviously have an ulterior motive, in order for doing that. So do not do that. Just engage with their content. Engage with their content, engage with what they're doing. Take a liking to what it is that they're doing. Focus on them for a bit, not just what you want to sell. And once you've done that, make sure that your content also aligns with what they're looking for. So it feels like each and every single time they see your content, they think of what problem it is that they're facing. And once you've done that, then you can sort of reach out to them. And also, the way you want to reach out to them is not necessarily just saying the obligatory, hey, thanks for connecting, I'm a PA. I help life coaches and founders with their content. If you want me to take a look at your content, just let me know. I've got a few ideas that I could pass to you. Those type of messages do work sometimes, but what I want you to do in order to get a very, very strong response rate is to ask a yes or no question. Now I'll pull up one of my messages that I sent this week. So it's a very, very, very strategic message that I sent, and actually got quite a few responses recently. So just give me a second. Uh, 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 okay, no, it's not this one. Um, oh yeah. So I said, hi Chantal, appreciate the connection. I see you've been live. I see you've been a life coach for about 2 years now, with the previous stint as a managing director. How are things on that end? Are you smashing it? A pivot. I'll repeat this message again. Hi Chantal, appreciate the connection. I see you've been a life coach for about 2 years now, with your previous stint as a managing director. How are things on that end? Are you smashing it? Up here. So up here at the bottom, just as an obligatory professional way of sending a message. And the reason being is because, one, I said I appreciate the connection. I didn't say thank you for connecting, because if I say thank you for connecting, that means I'm desperate. I'm desperate for their connection. I'm desperate for whatever it is that I'm looking for from them. So please do not say thank you for connecting. It sounds like you want something from them. Also, I took a huge amount of research into what it is that they're doing. I said, I see you've been a life coach for about 2 years now, and LinkedIn just doesn't just tell you how many years they've been a life coach for. You actually have to go to their profile, go to their experience, figure out how long they've been a life coach for, and really take massive pride in doing research on the type of people that you want to connect with. Now, and I also mentioned that you had a previous stint as a managing director, and I'm just asking a simple question of how are things on that end. And I also asked, are you smashing it? So the reason I ask, are you smashing it, is because it prompts a yes or no response. So if I ask you, hey, appreciate the connection. I see that you've been doing this and the other. Also, you also did this, that, and the other. How are things on that end? Are you smashing it? Does that sound like a message that you would respond to? You would either say yes or you either say no. And the reason this is so helpful is because if they say yes, I'm smashing it, then it sort of gives you an inclination that maybe they don't necessarily need your help. If it's no, which is quite rare, then you can sort of get into what it is that they're doing, and just like that, you're in the conversation, and now you can start sort of asking, questions that lead them to maybe booking a call with you, or maybe, you know yeah, booking a time with you, and hopefully becoming a client of yours. But I really do think, if you really want to get responses on LinkedIn, you need to ask them a question at the end of each and every single message, to prompt a response. I like the one that says, how are things on that end? Are you smashing it? Because once again, it prompts a yes or no response. um Also, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button. It really does help us a lot. And if you want to join us on this journey of getting to a thousand subscribers, I would definitely love to have you here. And yeah, if there's anything else that I haven't covered, please do let me know. I should probably get StreamYard so I can also stream this on LinkedIn itself. Today, this week is going to be quite busy, so I decided to do the live, early on Monday, so that I have a bit more time to sort of, maybe if I need to clip this content up and put it on other platforms, I can do that. But also, if you're someone that's using LinkedIn and you're a life coach and you're a founder and you really want to build your personal brand on LinkedIn, I would advise you to start a YouTube channel where you can also do live content like this. And the reason being is because, for one, you're building an audience on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn doesn't necessarily pay you, for the impressions that you're getting on your content. YouTube does, and that's impressions are rather, in simple terms, it's views on your content. So you're building a platform on YouTube where people see you. You also get to monetize your content at a certain point after posting, quite a bit of content, and people are, they like your content and they're subscribing. And also, you also get to share this type of content with your ideal clients. So let's say that they have a question maybe they might have, and you know if you can't answer their question in a newsletter, you can also answer their question on a YouTube live like this, or something like this, so that you build trust, you build credibility, you show people that you are available on the platform, and you're showing your face, which a lot of people don't do. It's not easy to show your face on camera and actually speak something of value. So really, it puts you ahead of everyone on LinkedIn who is posting very good content, but they're not necessarily showing their face, and you know it's a very difficult thing to do. So I would encourage you to start a YouTube channel. If they enjoy the content, you get to monetize it. If you've obviously met YouTube's criteria for monetization. And yeah, also, like I said, you get to educate your audience, and you also get to build trust, credibility, and people start to engage with your content a little bit more, because they now know who you are. And also, yeah, so I do encourage you to sort of start a YouTube channel. Now, I do not script my lives, so it does come off a bit, too organic, if I might say. But I will get into, doing that. And I'm also getting better at doing live content where I'm sharing a bunch of information. I'm not so nervous as I used to be. I think the last live that I did was a lot better in terms of, the ideas that I was sharing with you. But, you know, this is something that I generally do like. This is something that I do like doing, apart from, being faced by blurring lights. yeah, I really do enjoy this. But yeah, if you have any questions, please do ask me in the comments. I will be sticking around for at least another 5 to 10 minutes. And yeah, mm, also, if you're not following me on LinkedIn, please do follow me. Apiwe Kumalo, simple Apiwe Kumalo. A lot of people in America like to call me Apiwe. I do not know why. They literally see a P in my name and then they decide it's an F. Anyway, yeah, please do follow me on LinkedIn. So you can be kept up to date with the content that I'm posting, some of the strategies that I'm sharing in the comments, and things of that nature. Um, all right, give me a second. Let's see if we can fit in one more topic before we call it a day. Dun, dun, dun. Also, please do not forget to, like this live so that a lot of people can also see it. I don't necessarily know how YouTube works in terms of, likes, comments, and everything, but it's really, really helpful for the algorithm. So if anyone was using LinkedIn and wants to figure out how to make LinkedIn a success for themselves, please do hit the like button. Please do subscribe. Also share some. Also, if you're someone that's in a similar niche as mine, I do not mind if you get in the comments and you share something that's quite valuable. Not everything has to come from me, so I really want to build a platform. Also, yeah, I did talk to a previous client of mine and I asked her, do you want me to build a platform where we can all sort of get together? Not necessarily on LinkedIn where the conversation is probably just one to one. Maybe a school community where, maybe there's 300 or 400 of us, engaging, sharing ideas. Maybe you could find your ideal client in that community, things of that nature. So please do let me know if you want me to build a school community. I will add it to the things that I want to do this year. And yeah. Mm, But yeah, in terms of everything that I've covered, I think I've covered everything. I do want to sort of improve the content a bit in terms of, yeah, I want to share my screen sometimes, so that maybe whenever I'm doing a live and I'm talking about how to optimize your profile, you see the things that I'm doing and you can sort of take inspiration from what I'm doing. I don't like talking about how to optimize your profile and I'm not sharing my screen showing you exactly what it is that I'm doing. So I need to get that sorted out so that when I do decide to, do that type of content, you see exactly what it is that I'm doing and how to do it yourself. Yeah. Just give me a second. Mm. Yeah, I think we can fit in one more topic before I call it a day. Um, yeah, I think I found it. Excuse me. Yeah. So one of the recent posts that I put out, it was 2 months ago, where I said most life coaches are posting good content on LinkedIn, but they struggle with making money. I'll repeat that again. Most life coaches are posting good content on LinkedIn, but they struggle with making money. And here's why. The reason being is because of their system and their positioning. The system that you're using and the positioning that you've sort of adopted on LinkedIn. Now, one of the best ways to figure out what it is that you're doing, if what you're doing is not working, is to figure out what it is that you're currently doing. So it doesn't necessarily matter if you're someone that's you're sharing a ton of value, and but your value isn't necessarily coming across to your ideal clients, and you're not necessarily getting any clients. What I would advise you to do is, it doesn't matter if you're giving away a free lead magnet or you've got $1,000 coaching service. If you don't have a clear system to attract and capture leads, it's not necessarily in your best interest, to appear as a service provider, because you want to appear as someone who knows what they're doing. And I said this with, the example that I gave you, that if you want to make more money, you don't just get a second job. You just increase the value of what it is that you're currently doing. So, one of the best pieces of advice that I received when I was, on LinkedIn was, in every single thing that you're doing, always, always, always appear as the expert. And it starts with how you position your profile. If your profile doesn't look up to standard, I promise you, you won't be getting any clients, and no one will be interested in whatever it is that you're selling, even if it's free. So please do not put yourself in that position. If you do not have a clear system to attract and capture leads, just reach out to me and I'll help you figure out a way in order to, you know, build your own system and, your own way of doing things. Now, one of the things that also happens to be a very, very big problem is, yeah, your positioning, if I might say, because a lot of people who struggle with their positioning often struggle with how they structure their offer, how the because a lot of people who post good content on LinkedIn are very, very good at selling a transformation. And if you do not sell a transformation in your content, then how is it someone is going to trust you enough to become a client of yours and to see that transformation happen? So you need to include your transformation in the content and also in your offer. So you need to have a visible transformation and a reason why they should go with you over 100 other people who do exactly what it is that you're doing. So it's very, very important that your positioning is of an expert, not someone who's a service provider. Um, you don't want to be a generalist, you want to be a specialist. And also, with what we've covered today, you don't want to be a consistent generalist. You want to be a specialist. Consistent generalists are people who do things that everyone else is doing, but they're more consistent and they wonder why they're not getting, the results that they're looking for. Also, if I might give you some piece of lead generation advice, I will tell you that there's money in follow-ups. And I know it sounds like, you're desperate for a sale, or you're trying to push whatever it is that you're selling onto people who aren't interested. There's money in follow-ups. I will tell you that for a fact. A previous client of mine, it took me about 2 months of following up before they became a client. So it's very, very important that, you are following up, not in a way that, you get yourself blocked or anything, but, if you're someone that's interested in getting clients, definitely do your follow-ups. And yeah, I do think I've covered everything today. A lot less convincing than last week, but I've covered over 43 minutes, so I'm not going to delete this live. Um, but yeah, thank you for engaging. Thank you for tuning in today. If I have anything else that I want to share with you, please do follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I spend most of my time. And yeah, I'll see you guys very, very soon. And thank you. Right, where do I close this thing?